right? So the very concept of like a promise is going to collapse. So if everyone lied whenever it was going to be convenient to lie, obviously in this false world or this false universe, trust is going to vanish. It's going to make a lying like a eternal promise, right? So it would become practically impossible because nobody would believe you, right? Therefore, acting immorally is going to introduce some sort of practical contradiction. You're going to be implicitly relying on like this existence of truth to like manipulate other people, right? This is going to be willing a world where truth is not going to exist, and obviously we know the categorical imperative is just going to force us to be like actually logically consistent. Um, and rejecting actions that are going to be self-defeating and logically unsustainable, right? On like a societal level. Do you have any contentions with like the categorical imperative?
Yeah, so I guess there's a lot of presuppositions there. One, I think you're presupposing that the
Sure.
interlocutor has to hold to a contradiction. I can just cast it like a Trevelyan's literature view, just say,
No,
well,
no, that is the
contradictions.
complete
Wait,
opposite.
calm down, calm down. All right, let you talk, calm down. Anyways, right? I can just say like a Trevelyan's account and just say, well, contradictions don't exist within the dialect, which you would have to motivate, given my lack of belief that we can even hold to them. One, right? And two, when you're saying, well, we should even adopt the notion that the conceptual schema you're in reference to can be, we could say, pragmatically acceptable given the apparatus notion. I'm kind of putting that into question too because I don't really see how your view or your schema even hold validity within the dialectic. So I have three. Those are your three burdens right now currently. If you fulfill those, I guess we can progress within a debate. But
Okay, sure.
yeah,
But
yeah,
I
yeah.
don't I
So
don't think you understand what I was saying, right? Like arguing again. Yes, so obviously once again it's gonna be transcend to like dedication of this moral law, right? It's gonna be like some sort of synthetic like priority position, right? So like to substantiate this categorical imperative, in which in this case it's gonna be CI at like the highest level of like academic rigor, right? We're gonna have to look at the oh my gosh, the derivation, right? So obviously Kantian's ethics is going to posit that the moral law is not going to derive from empirical observation, which is going to be a posteriori induction, right? Um, Nor is it going to like derive from like this sort of conceptual analysis. It's going to come like the categorical imperative is going to operate as like this sort of practical synthetic priority position, right? So what I mean by this, it's gonna establish some sort of like justification between a phenomenal world, which is gonna be the realm of like sensory experience, like governed by these sort of deterministic, mechanistic casualities, right? And like the nominal world, which is gonna be like the realm of things in which it ends within themselves, right? Obviously, I'm sure you heard this within the categorical imperative. It's like if human beings were like purely phenomenal creatures, our actions will be entirely dictated by like these casual chains, right? It's going to be like these biological impulses, psychological conditioning, and external stimuli, right? It's like the CI is going to be substantiated because human beings are going to possess this dual citizenship as like rational agents, right? As rational agents, we're going to belong to like this sort of nominal and intelligible world, right? So when we act out of duty, which is going to be irrationally, we're going to be exercising some sort of transcendental freedom, right? And which is going to be the capacity to initiate a casual chain, like some sort of, yeah, like spontaneously, right? So it's going to be completely independent of an, what is it called, an antecedent, right? Um, and compare empirical conditions, right? Because the categorical imperative is going to be like the constitutional law of like this normal casuality, right? With the burdens you substantiated that I had to answer, it had absolutely nothing to do with what I was talking about.
okay, yeah. So to be clear here, for clarity, I think it's plausible for us to adopt the fact that we can have 1 minute talking time because that was really long, and I think you kept repeating yourself back and back and back, being redundant, right? But
Sure.
I'll just tell you as to why simpliciter. This is why your burdens do hold substance. You should fulfill them. If not, you can just take your concession. But anyways, you brought up something under the lies of a contradiction, well, I don't even know what you mean by contradiction. Obviously, it can be affirmed some type of formological contradiction or outside of that system, right? I don't really know what you mean by X there. And also, when you're saying that we should appeal to some type of, ethical view or some type of morality view, I'd say to be the case that you're also presupposing that both interlocutors rationally adopt to that notion entirely, right? So I'll just be suspending the X there. X is in reference once again to the rationality of morality and ethics. I can say like a moral nihilist view there. Just say, well, I don't see for the ethical view to be more, we can say, behavioral virtuously within the dialogue. So not only you would have to motivate that as well, but you would also have to motivate it to why should we should adopt the factors or the notions or concept that invokes the linguistic term of a we can say a contradiction, right? You can give a response now, but to clarify once again for the rec, I am absolutely rejecting this, followed by these somewhat virtuous commitments that invoke some type of a literature that posits an ethical nihilist view and moral nihilist view within the dialect. All right, my opponent can reply now.
Yeah, nice. Right. So first, I'm gonna tell you what I mean by like logical contradiction because it seems you're a little confused there. So like in universalization of like a maxim, right? We're gonna have to look beyond like some sort of formal symbolic logic. For example, P and not P, right? Which is gonna be like this sort of like logical contradiction, right? So it's gonna be like practical contradiction. Kant is not saying that the universe will like physically explode if everyone is going to lie, right? Um, it's going to be arguing that the institution or like practice is going to be required to execute the maxim. It's going to become logically possible to conceive or will when the maxim is universalized, right? Um, this is going to apply to like strict perfect duties, right? A maxim is going to fail this test when it's going to be universalized form. It's just going to be like this sort of conceptually self-annihilating view, which is just going to be logical contradiction. Um, this objection of everybody doesn't have to adopt this, right? I used to say escaping like the demands of rationality. It's gonna be like an existential impossibility for like a self-conscious agent, right? So you cannot choose to adopt or like abandon rationality because the act of choosing requires the deployment of rational faculties, right? So if you ask why should I be rational, you're asking for a reason. So like by demanding a reason, you have already submitted to the authority of reason, right? You're gonna be playing the game of rational justification the moment you demand a justification for the game itself, right? Um, if you're gonna entirely abandon rationality and be refusing consistency, and this is gonna be the argument, the opponent can reply.
Yeah, so this guy is very confused. So once you started giving your little, response to what I said, oh my gosh, I don't think you were tracking. So I'll just repeat my entire stance within a dialect, right? I said I'll just take like a Trevius account corresponding within the commitments of abstract rejectionism, right? Obviously, you could deny those views with some type of, rational intercase rhetoric response, right? But that's not
No,
what
no,
you
no,
did at
let's
all.
do it.
Stop, calm down. Anyways, right? It is the case that I think you're explaining what the contradiction notion will conform rather than attacking the views I hold to, right? That's what you'd be, all right, that's what you should be really worried
Okay,
about right now
sure.
within the dialogue, right?
What
I mean,
view? I asked
obviously,
you for
calm down, calm down, calm down. Stop talking. Anyways, right? It is the case that you did bring up logical contradictions. Well, Atrevius can just deny logical contradictions given the lack of motivation, right? And you said, well, I can just deny entirely of rationality, right? That's not what I said at all. Obviously, I am the absolute rejectionist, so we can just say simplicity can just talk about the doxastic attitudes can be correspondent to the suspensional belief and not the denial notion. So that's another blunder, right? But anyways, basically what I want you to do is rather than just explaining what you think a contradiction is within a rational agent sense, I want you to attack my views. My views once again within the dialogue. I'm gonna repeat them again because you can't really track. I'll just hold to like an absolute rejectionist view and an ethical nihilist view that's followed numbers and stimulus view that also posits the commitments in literature within a moral nihilist account. Now you can reply. Please track.
Okay,
Go.
nice, nice, amazing. I don't think you're really, I don't think you're really fucking listening here. Yeah. So look, right. First of all, I asked you a clarifying question, right? I asked a clarifying question. What position are you holding to? I feel like you're rage baiting me, right? I asked you what
No,
position
you're
are you
getting
holding
beat
to
up right now.
because
It's
you're
pretty
trying to.
bad.
Okay, no, listen, because no, because you're trying to do like rhetoric issue. I'm asking you like what position are you holding to, right? Obviously, I heard then what you were saying. I asked a clarifying question, right? You said you're holding to some sort of like ethical nihilism, right? But I literally, if you were listening, if you were using your head, I literally defended against the ethical nihilism, right? Do you want me to dumb down the argument as to why or like how I defended against ethical nihilism?
Okay, to be clear, oh my, you're so terrible. Okay, to be clear, right? You never attack any of the views at all, which committed to the dialect that I appeal to within the inference dialect, right? All I said is, well, we can have these ethical accounts and, absolute reductiveness account that can correspond within the same notion of literature, right? But you never attacked at all. Literally, your entire ramble simpliciter just says that you were just talking about logical
I
contradictions, and as rational agents, we should adopt to these contradictions given our rationality, right? That's not you didn't attack any views at all in regards
Oh,
to the positions
you're
I
not
hold to
tracking
within the
me. You're not
dialect, right?
tracking me. You're not tracking me.
Calm down, and
You're
I
not
don't know why
tracking
you're
me.
trying to overtalk me because it's not going to work, right? Anyways, it is the case that my opponent is really confused now, and I just I just got VC banned for nigga. Oh, I just got VC banned, bro. I was frying this nigga. Oh my god. Bro, no, that shit just pissed me off, bro. I was frying the fuck out this nigga. Oh my god.